Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the follow-up discussion to the BAI Craft Concert Series. My name is Enongo Lumumba-Kasongo. I am a postdoctoral fellow in the music department at Brown, and I'm really excited for tonight. So the BAI Craft Concert Series was two virtual concerts that were hosted on March 4th and March 27th within the game Minecraft and presented by the Brown Arts Initiative as part of the 3-year theme of Remaking the Real. So tonight we'll be talking about personas, and I'm joined by 3 brilliant artists who performed this past Saturday in Minecraft. And in a moment we'll hear from them, but first I would like to extend some thank yous to all of the folks who made the concert series possible. First, a big thank you to B. Dolan, a Providence-based multi-hyphenate artist who served as the producer for the game, project managing the design and build of each of the virtual environments in which the artist performed, and the master of the in-game camera work, which often felt very choreographed in relationship to the artist's movements. The museum build was constructed by iRoxer, and additional stage building, server coordination, and all in-game programming was done by Vector Batesta. Additional build assistance came from Digital Monster and Salunatic. Sancha, Samus, Suzi Analogue, and More Mother Skins were care of Rados. Thank you to the Brown esports team as well for their help on the building of the green, as well as other volunteers who helped to make that possible. Thank you to Sofia Lacava Bohannon, Sean Tavares, and Gregory Picard for this event in particular. So I would like to bring our panelists up to the stage. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them if we're able to. And I'll have each of the performers introduce themselves. So we'll begin with Sancha. Please come to the stage and introduce yourself to these wonderful folks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sancha, and I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm based out of Los Angeles right now. I'm a California girl. I think I'm the only one here, not from the East Coast or not in the East Coast.
Yes, thank you so much. And your friend.
This is Lola. Say hi, Lola. She doesn't speak on command.
Ice cold, a diva. Okay, I love that for her. Yes. We would also now like to invite to the stage Du Yan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I do not have anything on my shoulder. I can show you the box of tissues. My face. And oh, here it is. Hello, I'm Dugan, and I am a composer, performer, and advocate for music and culture and people. And yes, I'm born and raised in Shanghai, China, and now based in New York. Actually, tuning in from Savannah right now.
Wonderful. Yeah, and we're worldwide, which is part of what's made this event so spectacular and special, is being able to have us all kind of be connected in a virtual space from our respective corners of the globe. So thank you for being here. And last, but of course not least, I would like to invite up Suzi Analogue. Please come to the stage.
Hey everyone, it's good. I'm Suzi, producer, songwriter, creator of Never Normal Records, composer of audio visual worlds, and I live in Miami and have my studio there, but today I'm actually talking to you from Oakland, California.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here after putting on incredible performances within Minecraft. And I'm just really excited to talk to you about how you think about persona in this context and in your work, and beyond and kind of what the future of your work might hold in that regard. So I wanted to start by asking if you could reflect on any aspect of preparing to perform in the game, and either performing in the game or watching yourself perform in the game, if you opted to have me kind of control your avatar. So just to give people who are watching a little bit of context before the panelists kind of chime in on this. So the way that this worked is we sent B. Dolan, first pre-recorded our sets and then sent those to B. Dolan to kind of synthesize and sequence. And so all of the announcing that you heard me doing in the show, that was pre-recorded in response to the sets that were sent. And then the performers were asked to log into Minecraft while their set was being streamed, the audio of it, and perform in real time along with the streamed set, so that it could kind of give the feel of a live performance space. Because of how Minecraft works, that's how we had to kind of do the audio. And so to mitigate technical concerns, we decided to pre-record the sets in that way. So there were a lot of different aspects of performance that were going on at the same time. And so I wondered if you could speak just about the experience in general. What was weird, what was confusing, what was interesting, what did you learn about yourself? Please feel free to jump in or speak to any aspect of that.
Well, I'll just start by saying it was really cool to first learn about how I could even perform in Minecraft, or what I could be doing, and the basic movements and the keyboard hits and all of that. And it was funny because when I first came to my stage, or I was transported to my stage by B. Dolan, I couldn't get backstage, and it really brought me into a real life perspective, because I'm just like, is this security keeping like a virtual security gate or a rope that's like, hey, are you on the list do you have the wristband for backstage? And so I actually had a moment like that. I was like, I can't get backstage. Like, how am I gonna get on stage but I can't get backstage? So that was like my first moment of experiencing the live, because my set had started, but I was like out with the people, and I'm like, well, this is how I'm starting my set. And I have actually done real stage shows where I start not on stage. I've come down to the crowd and I end with the crowd. I play around with that in my real live experience. And so it just for some reason it still had that same effect on me, where I thought about how I'm setting up this Minecraft performance.
Yeah, feel free to reflect on that. I love this idea of like you kind of project the like IRL experience of like, oh, I'm trying to get into the show, but I can't. And the stress, it releases the same kind of stress responses that you would experience in
Totally
the physical environment. Yeah.
Getting those flashbacks and everything. Even just like hearing all the noise and the fireworks and stuff like that, and hearing the reactions was really nice. Because we've been doing so many like of these virtual shows that all we have is like little hearts. And for me, I haven't been looking at any of if I do a live on Instagram or something, I don't look at any of the comments. I just see the people that are filming me, which will be my partner and the person who helped me get dressed. And it's such a different experience because they will make all these faces and I'm like, what am I doing wrong, or what's going wrong, and it'll kind of take me out of that. And then in this way, like I got to be like, oh, I see people jumping around, I see all these random things going on, but I'm not distracted by it. It feels like I'm actually on a stage, and I'm remembering what kinds of things I used to like to do, like have a little intro and then stay on the side of the stage and not actually show up, and be lit until your part actually starts. And then I was trying to replicate the way that I dance cumbias, and I couldn't really get it, but I tried.
Yeah, there's such a limited range of motion with the Minecraft characters that in some ways it can feel like a constraint, because it's like, I want to twist or I want to shimmy, but then you develop these interesting strategies for trying to convey a particular move. Like there was someone during all of your sets, but people who I saw were really figuring out how to like move their bodies. And I hope that you all have had a chance to look back through the footage, and I would ask you, send it to you if you haven't had a chance to do so, because you'll see all of the people like viscerally responding to different parts of the sets and twisting their heads around and, hitting the shift up so their knees are moving up and down in real time, or the space.
That was the part I loved, honestly, because I played a lot of take it to the floor, take it down to the floor type beats, and people just started like not only bouncing in the air, they taught me. They were like, I was like, oh wow, they're hitting the shift button to bend their knees because that's how you come down. So I started tapping the shift button, and I rewatched my first part of the show yesterday, and it was just kind of amazing to see how I picked it up and I started interacting and how people started interacting with me. And it was natural based on the sonics that they were hearing and how they would interact in a real life space. And it also made me wonder, like, do some of the people who were there, do they actually go out and dance all the time? This is another cool way to like dance in our minds. Like, it's not that we can, especially with COVID, we can't go out and dance anywhere. So this is like some of the closest. We're still using movement and kinetic energy to create a response to music. But I'm just like, wow, what if this is for a person who's like more introverted too, and would love to like test out, if I was on the dance floor, I would be doing it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's really something to be said for what can be experienced in this space that maybe can't be experienced in the live performance space. And part of that is a kind of anonymity that allows you to, even with that limited range of motion, you're vulnerable, you're dancing, you're moving, you're showing yourself. And so there's a way in which the anonymity that's provided through, being able to create the avatar allows you to kind of move and shake in ways that maybe you might not feel comfortable doing in a kind of real life setting, and that we obviously can't really be doing in this moment. Duyan, I wondered if you wanted to speak at all about your experience of the show and just Minecraft in general.
Yes. Hi, Enongo, right? Yes. Did I say it right? Enongo?
Perfect.
Thank you so much for avataring my set. I was trying to explore the Minecraft, and first of all, I'm terrible at any kind of video game. Like, if I were to compete with a 3-year-old, like I would die within 3 seconds.
Some 3-year-olds are very sophisticated with
exactly. It's very humbling, to understand, like, to wanted to excel at something that you're just innately not good at it. As I was trying to understand how Minecraft work, I said yes for this because I was like, yes, I'll always say yes to something I have never done before. Yeah. Just because I want to know, I want to see what's the option. Especially, I feel like during COVID, it's actually time when we actually can really explore our limitlessness. And so as I was trying to experiment, and I realized like it's really limited of what the gesture could do, and knowing the kind of music that I do, I was like, wow, if I were to try to do it, it would really look dumb. Like, because like often my work is on this grand scale, and so many gestures embodied, and then and so I asked for this underwater outwardly set. As I was trying, so I knew that I wanted to do this kind of like narration. I couldn't really figure out what to do, and then the gun shooting happened. So I was on social media, and there was like all this tweets and rather angry tweets to say that, we Asian people are not your avatar. So bearing that in mind, and so I was really like thinking hard, what can I do for a show that is essentially on identity, on avatar, when there is this sensitivity around that discourse. So I had to like rethink everything, and then I decided that I was actually in Florida at a time really close to Sarasota. So I decided to go to the John Ryland the Circus Museum, and I decided that if I were to, and when you are in the Circus Museum, you learn that all this advertising words is about really like outlandish, the most, and exotifying everything, right? And this was the time when people learn and encounter for the first time the exotic beings, the fruits, the animals, that's through the circus. So I thought, let's push the envelope a little bit further, and let's just set this in a circus and have this most exotic objects. And then if you set up that framework first, and then you can actually set all the detours that could take on. So I was really like interested to see how that detour works. I was so like excited when I was seeing you avataring in navigating the performance with my music, and just really worked really well for me. And because it kind of pauses a little, and it gives another freedom that all this avatar could live in that storytelling, because you are devoid of that people performing that storytelling. You are seeing the avatar, you are seeing the bits, so that the storytelling becomes a little bit more expansive for me. Sorry, I'm taking too much time. I'm done.
Not at all, not at all. And so I think there's so many different parts of what you just shared that I love, and that we can use, I think, to jump into the next part of the conversation. And some of that has to do with how do you translate? How do you translate gestures and particular kinds of sonic experiences into something like Minecraft, right? Into something that doesn't seem on its surface to provide a lot of space for gestures or slight gestures, a gentle or intimacy, right? This seems very blocky. You can only like you can slash your arm, and you can move up and down, and you can, hop up. And so it's like, well, how do I, especially for this music that is, it's close, it's intimate in many different parts, it's quiet in many different parts, you have to really be listening. How do you kind of reflect that? And so I felt like I wanted to be a good steward for this amazing work that you had submitted in kind of performing as your avatar. And so I was really tapping the keyboard very, very lightly and trying to move in relation to the pace that you were setting through the production. So, I appreciate the point that you made at the beginning, where it was like, how am I going to perform in this space, knowing the kind of music that I make? Because that was sort of how I've performed in a Minecraft space before this. And that was a question for me, is how can I, in my live show, I'm screaming, I'm in the audience's face. I might take my shoes off, I'm running around. How can I possibly convey that in this space? But you find new gestures or find new ways to sort of express that. So I just want to express my gratitude to you for creating a space for me to kind of explore that as well, how to move and gesture differently in this virtual environment.
You are so kind. As I was listening to Sancha's set, I was like, oh damn, sorry. No, because it's so different than mine. I love it, and I thought, wow, like, why video game music can be this awesome and diverse? And throughout the sets, that's exactly what I thought. It was like 3 sets are so different from each other, and so different, like diverse worlds and a universe that we each inhabit in. And it's, but when we're talking about video game music, it's still living in that, you know, that kind of limited universe. And I think that, you know, maybe we just need more diverse voices, and then really not just thinking about like the bits of just nerdy kids are doing. No, it's not that, you know. And I wanted to add, a 9-year-old immediately know that I'm doing this Minecraft. He jumped in to and watched it, and he said the music is so cool, and the video with the music is so cool. I just feel like I got the stamp. I got
If you can impress a 9-year-old, that means that we are really doing a great job. So I wanted to move on to the question of, oh my goodness, time is flying. Wow. So I wanted to ask questions about persona outside of the experience of performing, creating within Minecraft. Because I think as creatives, you're constantly engaging this question. People, you know, you have a public facing part of your creative practice, you have a private part of your practice, you may have a self that's doesn't even have access to that creative part of your practice. That's, you know, you try to keep distinct, or maybe you try to blend them together and you're trying to figure out who's who in here. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit about how you navigate persona in regards to your creative process. So again, you have this public facing performer persona, but it would be illuminating, I think, to hear how this shows up in the creative, like private sphere. So do you have particular rituals that allow you to tap into a persona when you're trying to make a song, or when you're going into the studio? Or do you think of yourself as being in a sort of separate performer space when you're in those environments? Do you feel like it's just an extension of other characters who show up in your public facing creative life? How does persona show up in the parts of you that are creative but are still not visible to the world yet?
I feel like for myself, the performer is the parts of me that I hide. So it's the parts of me that could be very dramatic, that could be very emotional. The parts that aren't like that you don't want to show people, the parts that are rude to show people, like the parts that are bossy, that tell people what to do, you know, like, and when, especially when recording, it's, I don't know, for me, it's an on and off switch, like getting on the stage, as opposed to like rehearsing and practicing. Sometimes it'll come out, but something with being on stage or being in front of the microphone that just all of a sudden it's on. And with recording, sometimes I won't be on and I'll know it, you know, and I have to just like either take a break or just breathe and really think about what I'm saying and what I really want the song, like not thinking about what sounds pretty, instead what the song brings or what the song is supposed to bring. And sometimes I start singing outside of the microphone, just like in the house, and I'm like, okay, I got it, now I got to go back to the microphone, you know. But with the writing process, it's trying to be as honest as possible with what I'm trying to say, or not really thinking about other people other than myself, you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like the relationship to like vulnerability and self, because it's like in your persona self, that's where the most honesty sort of lives, like the one that you're kind of crafting. And also interesting to hear about how there are certain cues that enable you to step into that persona. Sometimes that's like the microphone, and sometimes that's the stage, but sometimes you need a thing that enables you to recognize, you know, that it's time to be this person. Suzi, I know you were going to jump in as well.
Yeah, speaking to that, what you just left off with, for me, when I do a live show, I wear various inspired pieces that I've been designing and creating with a stylist and a designer in Miami. And so now we have 30 different robes. I grew up singing in choir, and I think I just kind of gravitated toward putting on a traditional garment before I present myself to the world. So I tapped back into that through my series of ropes that we've been making for me to perform in over the last like 3 years of me touring. And so to tap into my Suzi Analogue persona, that act of just getting dressed and adorning myself ahead of a show, whether it's backstage or if it's in a bathroom because they don't have a green room or something.
Right.
Specifically taking that time to do that is something that prepares me to tap into my best Suzi Analogue self. And I realized that while touring, no matter where I am, if I actually have that hour, 45 minutes where I'm putting on the robe and I'm also getting my stage makeup ready, I settle within myself and I'm preparing myself for the show. So it's a ritual to me at this point to get ready like right before the show. It's never chaotic. And because I'm not like wearing all these different crazy outfits, it's things that I've already made and constituted for the show. That's one way that I tap into my persona even more. In the recording process, I'm still trying to find what that ritual would be. Per se, I used to think it was cleaning. I know that is part of it. I do feel oftentimes we work in spaces that aren't always detached from our homes. I mean, my current studio is in my home. It's a designated room, but it's like, with that being said, I'm just like, okay, well, in order to start my process of just like jamming and labbing, I need to clean up ahead and I need to make sure I have some food prepared. Because once I start, I'm going to want to keep going. So those little attention to detail things I think have been important for me, but I don't know if that's more about like efficiency and less about persona. And I'm still exploring what it is that I have to do. But with recording, one thing I have to do is stay up late at night. And so the Suzi Analogue persona is an all-night person. And I know that by now because not only do I record late into the night, and I think that influences the sounds that I play, I have had in the past a 3 a.m. set time and be like, this is totally normal. And actually 3, 4, 5 in the morning and I'm still playing.
Wow. And can I just ask you, thank you for sharing all of that before kind of seeing how Duyun thinks about persona in that context. If you could talk a little bit about like the studio itself and whether that has an effect on you feeling like you're in character or ready to go as an artist. So I'm just thinking back to what Sancha was saying about like the microphone creating the transform. And so sometimes, I feel like I have to be in a very particular setting. And so often the studio is that setting that enables me to feel like a proper artist. Like I'm really an artist. I'm here to do this. Like this is not even my job, but this is like my calling right now. Let me do what I need to do. And nothing has changed materially between me, sitting behind on my bed and like being in the studio context, but the switch flips because I'm conceiving of it as a studio. So do you have a sort of similar relationship to like the studio, whatever that looks like, or do you feel like you don't really need to do that kind of work to get into your creative like mode?
You know what's funny? My relationship with studios came after I've always been recording. I've been recording since I was 9 onto the cassette tapes, and that's just like me being a kid and exploring what it means to record and stack sounds onto a recordable piece of format. And So I actually always started in my home, in my home space. I actually got into studios later in life. And it's like more recently have had access to more studios and like better studios, so to speak. But they actually make me uncomfortable because I feel like I'm actually on my way to a studio after this. And I'm just like, we have like 4 hours. What are we gonna get done? Like the engineers there and they're waiting. So I feel comfortable. I feel more comfortable in my home space. But I will say this, for me, what inspires me is having my tools around me. And ever since I was younger, I have recordings of me just talking. I used to do an audio journal. Now I'm realizing it was an audio journal, but I would just be talking to myself into a microphone. So I'm just sharing my thoughts. I grew up watching Moesha, and she was always like Dear Diary, and I'm like, I'm Dear Diary vibes right now. So so because of that, like I listen back to those recordings that I recorded at like 9 or 10. And I'm like, well, I have my music area. I thought about that recently. I have one recording where I said, I have my music area. I have my keyboard, and I have a microphone, and I have this. So I have my tools, and I was feeling good. And I just remember that if I could replicate that anywhere I go, that brings me joy enough to want to create. So I always keep a mobile studio in my backpack. I always keep a couple synths. I always keep a couple like my DAW and my sound card. And I love mobile and portable electronics that help me create that feeling anywhere I go. And if I happen to come to a studio and they have more to add, that can get me a little bit more excited about being in an actual studio, because I'm always stressed. I run my studios like a whole agenda. I'm like, okay, we're going to spend 30 minutes doing this, and we're doing this, and we're going to go back to that. And at home, I actually don't do that. I actually just vibe and jam. So the space matters, but I think the tools excite me to want to create.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that answer.
No doubt.
Du-Yun, could you talk a little bit about how you think about persona in your creative practice, like as you're thinking through or writing or recording, all the sort of parts of that aren't exposed to the viewer and listener? How does persona kind of shape that process for you?
I don't think about persona at all. I think about the world in which that I'm living in, and I want to think about, I'm always so busy engaging with the topics that I'm engaging with. There is just little room for me to think about persona. And also where I work is really not important. I can work anywhere, especially when I'm meeting with people who have really nothing, and without electricity, water, and they still do the amazing work that they do, and that is really humbling. So no, so I do not think about persona at all. Even though people, I think persona also is something that other people think that's who you are, and other people are trying to label that. You might, maybe there are times that you like to wear that wig for a long time, or going through the wig, or going through the looks, right? But you don't really think about persona. I mean, not you. I mean, I didn't really think about persona per se. It's just maybe pertaining to the projects. But then other people will conclude that is the body of your persona. But I think as an artist and as an advocate for the topics, I want to make sure that I have freedom. I want to make sure that such freedom is not submit to any sort of labels or any sort of Andy Warhol's wig, right? That's a code, even though that's a beautiful, wonderful wig. But I think that is also a prison in itself. To me, that I want to explore a greater freedom.
Yes, and I appreciate that response so much, because I think, and that will lead into nicely into the next set of questions, which has to do with some of the like managing persona as it relates in some regards to these ideas and identities that are impressed upon us, but also just the management of your lives as artists, right? Like there are so many different spheres that we work within, and different kinds of relationships that you often have to manage. And so there's personas can kind of show up in that way as well. So, you know, one of the biggest critiques of our moment, for example, is that we're increasingly fractured, that there's particularly with social media and the demands of like postmodern life means that you're 1,000 selves in all of these different ways that emphasize alienation and disconnection, right? That seems to be like a way that a lot of people are characterizing this moment, and maybe not really capturing the fullness of it, but that definitely feels like a major narrative that I hear. So I'm curious just how you kind of manage all of the different ways that you're interacting with the world as a performer and as yourself, who's not the performer self. So just to even give an example, I rap and perform under the name Samus. And there are so many people who know me and understand me as Samus. And I remember it was strange for me at first when people would call me Samus outside of that context, right? I was like, my name's Enongo. You know, I would introduce myself as Enongo, but because they were familiar with me in this musical context, I was Samus, and I was all of the things that they had associated with that music. And even signing off emails, it was like, who do I sign off as? What is my, you know, where am I in all of this? And you know, who is Samus, and when do I want to be her? When do I not want to be her? Trying to negotiate those types of questions. So I wonder if you can kind of speak to how that manifests in your lives, maybe outside of the strictly kind of creative performance space. And you can also speak about how it manifests within that environment. But I'm curious if you can talk about just that part of the management of persona as artists who have wide fan bases, who love you for what you do, and thinking of this, the prison of persona, the prison of what people think of you. How do you negotiate that?
I think that's really interesting because I've been trying to fine tune that more lately. And I've set like some boundaries for myself just to say, okay, I'm going to savor my thoughts for my creativity and my music and not just like tweet out every thought all the time, or just tweet a response or be like reactive and be on social media like so often. So I use social media for like announcements lately, and kind of sharing memories, events, and things that I've done with other people and highlighting other people. But I wouldn't say that cultivates, it can cultivate a persona as that being a perspective of who I am, but it more so is just a way I'm trying to navigate and uplift the things that I've done, and use that to create organic awareness of what is possible creatively when people collaborate and come together from many different backgrounds. And so it's been really interesting. It's kind of like less of like me and my thoughts. I feel like I've shared them, and I'm someone who's just been online for so long, and you know, my entire like late teens and 20s was online and sharing thoughts, and this is what I think, and people came to know me for some of those reasons, but overall it was because of music and art. So now I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm saying, hey, why not make it just about music and art basically all the time? And when I want to share other perspectives, maybe I can write a script, maybe I can do something different and creative and interactive, that will bring me closer to the people who have been tuning in for so long. And I just think about it in those types of terms versus like persona and like what people know of me. Like I don't have to create it anymore. I think I've shared so much organically. And so it's an everyday process, because some days we do wake up and we want to talk about current events. You know, we've had some very, very heavy events affect us. I was very vocal about everything that has recently happened, with police brutality and violence, like femicide, violence, violence against Asian people, and everything. I always speak to what's going on and what we're experiencing from our perspective, but I don't use that to build a persona. I just want to always be connecting with the people who care and who want to use creativity to make change and bring unity in the world.
Mm-hmm. So it's a constant negotiation. So it's kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, it's every day. I call it chipping away, but maybe it's just chipping away from some of the old ideas, or like the concept that a creative needs to invent ourselves versus be a source of inspiration, be a source of healing, be a source of possibility for our communities.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sancha, you want to say something?
Well, with me, it's like, so I have three names. So what I was named by my parents is Lizette Annabelle. My mom was the one that decided on the middle name, Annabelle. So that's what my family calls me. So when I started school and didn't know any English, they forced Lizette upon me, even though I would tell them, no, I'm Annabelle. Everybody calls me Annabelle, you know? So then I associated like that name with like legalities and stuff like that, and went through school in that way. And then there was a day when I decided, no, I want all of my friends, everyone that knows me, to call me Sancha, because that had already been my stage name, but I was like, no, now I'm only introducing myself as such, because at that time I had just started hanging out with all my drag queen friends and was like, I want to look like a performer all the time. And, you know, and at that time, really opening up to my own queerness. So then at this point now, fast forward to the quarantine and being at home and all this stuff, and not wanting to look like a performer all the time, but still associating that stage name with the kind of freedom and queerness that I had associated with it. And also just the permission to be myself.
Wow.
So, and kind of trying to keep that, and almost like my first name is now my dead name in a way, and my middle name like is only for my family. You know, nobody like, I won't ask my family to call me Sancha, because that actually means mistress. And if people like Mexican people, like it really just means whore. So I'm like, I'm not going to tell my mom to call me that, but everybody else, you know, you call me Sancha. You don't know any other name. You don't need to know my real name. But yeah, and as far as social media, I have like a weird relationship with it right now, where it's almost like I'm afraid of it. I don't want to post anything unless it's show related things. Just out of like maybe being scarred from like older situations, of me being so vocal and wanting to like throw all of my opinions out on social media, and wanting to make points with people that I was fighting with and stuff like that. And at this point, I feel like I'm more afraid to even put anything personal out there. Just because I feel like I'm in the in-between stage of like, you know, the internet wasn't always my life. I even was late at getting like a smartphone and stuff like that. I'd be at the club with, you know, a flip phone. I wasn't recording anything. I'm not used to like taking selfies and things like that. So all this stuff is like, it's a little weird to me.
So it sounds like for you, again, it's a different kind of negotiating, but there's a negotiation there as well for you. And part of the, like, how you see your names is how you kind of define who's in your community, who's in sort of like the concentric circle, which I think is really, really profound way to think about who relationality, like who assessing how you feel about someone based on kind of what you're allowing them to address you as, and stepping into the performer name as the space of freedom is really, really powerful as well.
Yeah, I relate to that as well, because it's funny. People ask me, you know, I have a government name, and they say, "Oh, what do you want me to call you?" I'm like, Suzi, because like there's it's at the point where if you didn't meet me past like 2005, if you met me past 2005, you actually probably don't know my name unless you like Wikipedia or something. Like people write articles with it, but it's like, yeah, let's just keep it what you came to know me by. Like,
yes.
So yeah, and do you have any kind of thoughts on how you navigate all of these, any of these different questions around persona in your life?
So by the way, Duyun is my full name. Du is my surname, and Yun is my given name, first name, which means in Chinese means rhyme, the rhyme of a poem, rhyme of rhyme of a being. I rather like my name, so I insist even going to the Starbucks that they have to call me my full name. No, I stopped thinking about me for a long time. A name is just a name, but because I've been doing work for so long, that if I were to change it, I would not be able to recognize. I'm just like, my parents don't even call me any other thing other than Duyun. So I know in the world, from my ancestor to the future generation as Duyun. So that is profound and poignant to me, and also because my work is so very much of different styles, and when I was younger, I got a little bit of pushback, thinking, people tell me that if you want to take it seriously, you have to, just, you can't do so many different voices or styles. And I'm like, why not? I'll show you. What if it's just, what if I'm thinking, like the next generation of Chinese women composers and performers who are very, very late immigrants can just embody all that and beyond. And that was even before any sort of, hashtags even known. So I've been living by examples, and that's why I feel like I have a very healthy relationship with social media. I think it's great things for me to know what's going on in the world. It's just another windows. If I don't like that window, I close it. And so it's that I will never lose myself, because myself is too powerful to be lost in. And also, I think the world, that as an individual, but the thing is that unfortunately the world see you differently, right? It doesn't matter how you see yourself. The world categorize you in a certain way, when you board a plane, when you go through custom borders, when you walk the line, when you on the in the public space, and I think that, you know, more and more I am very so aware of that, and that's why I wanted to use my platform, my artistic platform, to have more of the freedom for other people look like me or not looking like me, can still have that freedom and can still aspire to have that freedom. So what do we mean by freedom? I think the freedom is another word that is very polluted, is very but freedom for me is about this aspiration to be able to choose, aspiration to be able to just be. And I think that is so important, just to exist. And I think, unfortunately, in this world, that that work still need to be done, and that's okay. You know, we're still in it and we're doing it, and that's okay. And there's just no time for rage. But that's why I feel like, you know, having this set of performance when we are trying to explore different avenues are very so inspiring. You know, like they're like, oh, look, let's look at the Minecraft, how that's gonna look like, and then it's like, oh my goodness, it can do this, it can do that, and that is freedom, you know. So yeah.
Wow, and way to bring it back to Minecraft. That was beautiful.
I know.
And I love what you said. And I'm so excited by the range of different perspectives in this conversation, because there's different approaches for that all of you employ for engaging with like the capaciousness of who you are and what you're trying to do. And so in some cases, creating this other person to kind of, or other, this extension of you allows you to express what formerly had been, you know, you have been unable to kind of speak. And in doing that, that empowers you and feeds back into who you were sort of initially. And I know that's been my experience as well with adopting this persona. It felt like this is someone who can be the person I'm not able to be in my regular life when I'm just in my classroom or, you know, when I'm at the store. But I love the way that you've talked to Duyan about how for you, having all of these different parts of your music fit under that umbrella of who you are allows for people to see that one person can house all of these different ways of being, that there's a kind of sense of possibility that comes with maintaining this singular name to maintain a number of different visions and a number of different sounds. So I just love all of the different approaches that you are all kind of working within to empower yourselves and to empower your communities through your journey to figure out who you are and what's important to you. I'm like a card carrying stan at this point. I love each of your works so much, and I've been raving about them, you know, since we organized this bill. So I'm just endlessly grateful to be in conversation with you, and we're running out of time. So I just wanted to ask one last question, which is sort of open-ended, and you can take it where you'd like it to go. But I just want to think about the future, maybe the future of your performance self, future virtual spaces that you want to perform within, just how you're kind of envisioning or thinking about your creative and expressive future. And I'll share that I'm in the middle of trying to create another persona who can house another part of me that I feel like Samus can't and Enongo can't contain. And that's been a really fun experience of trying to craft this other identity that expresses something about me that the other two can't really maintain. So I'm just really curious. Feel free to share other visions for how you're thinking about your future expressive self.
I've been thinking a lot about that all of us should be making television and movies, especially with this that's going on, the way that we have to film everything. I'm like, all of us musicians, we create stories, you know, and that's kind of the future, and beyond kind of music videos too, and beyond like movie musicals even, like they always just sound like musicals. And I see the future as combining all of that and kind of doing away with those like, oh, this is a music video, so we're lip syncing, and you know, things like that, and kind of bending those rules, and even with performances, using a lot more digital elements within. But that's all, I think, very future and resources.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge fan of the show Insecure, and I think in Insecure they use music in really interesting ways, and she raps in really interesting ways, and I would love to see more kind of visual culture, video culture, and engage or incorporate music in ways that don't map onto like our understandings of how music is supposed to act in a show. It's just like mood, you know, it's like makes the mood, but it can do other things, like characters can engage with it in new ways. So I love what you're saying.
Yes, I really love that. And I'm really glad that you're just thinking in that way, Sancha, because it's like we're owning our narratives now in such a way, beyond these personas, our actual experiences that we're putting into the narratives of our creative scope. And so opening that up more and more for people to see themselves, to be able to see themselves and understand what they might also be experiencing that we're experiencing. There were so many taboos in culture previously about what we could and couldn't broadcast. And now it even took a pandemic for us to say broadcast it all, because we're all we got. And sometimes we can't sit in a room together and talk about it. And then we realized we were sitting in rooms together and we still weren't talking about some things that were very vital to us just progressing with humanity being central to why we come together. And so, you know, that's very meta. It's like very meta, but that's all to say that yes, more audio visual for me. I am working on my labeling collective Never Normal, and we are just uplifting as many identities as we can, especially who share the Black experience and the Indigenous experience, and who create music and visuals with a certain first-hand knowledge of participating in cultural traditions, whether they be more new or more modern. Like some of the sounds that I played in the Minecraft set, touching on like techno or house or bass music, knowing that there are artists that continue and evolve the cultures of electronic music and the histories that people have created for making spaces to express joy in major cities where there's so much systemic oppression. That is what I'm really focusing on now, and we are also working on some international projects with different collectives on the continent of Africa. So that is music, but I don't think any artist I work with has a plan for any of this to be just music. We want to create experiences. We want to bring visuals, narratives. People are always telling me, I just finished a script and I want to shoot a visual for this and that. And so that's just the times. That's the times we live in. We want to create and bring it to a space where we can share with people. So for me, my focus right now is Never Normal. And in the future, hopefully just producing more and more experiences like that blend technology, just like what we just did. I mean, it was amazing. I grew up playing games, so much so that I usually get motion sickness when I do play. But for whatever reason, Minecraft didn't give me the motion sickness, and I was able to actually enjoy playing and interacting. And I have made music since I was young, and I've been in a digital social media forum type space since I was a teen. So bringing those angles together and creating experiences that even near or far we could come together is really what my focus is going forward, and how that can unify us, unite us even within our differences that we have, and just create more sustainable support for the communities of people throughout the world that have been building, have been cultivating so much spirit and joy and bringing so much innovation to the world. So, you know, it's a lot, but it's also, you know, I don't know what else I would be doing if I wasn't working on this now and into the future.
Yes, yes, I see the vision. I'm here for the vision. I love what you said about joy. Joan Morgan, who's a hip hop feminist and an incredible thinker, she writes a lot about pleasure and the importance of pleasure in our lives, and seeking and the radical nature of seeking pleasure for those who are on the margins, right? So like, it's really important. These pleasureful spaces are really vital for our well-being. So thank you for all the pleasure and joy that you all have kind of shared with us. And Duyan, do you have any visions for the future that you would like to share, just about your own work or how you want to perform?
I think I live in the future. I think everything Suzi just said, in terms of producing, in terms of uplifting voices, in terms of because music to me is never a mood. It's actually always a driving force for storytelling, for the universe, for the framework, for the poetic framework that we inhabit in. And I've been doing so-called audiovisual for a long, long time. And yes, and technology is incredible. You know that just the ease of technology. But that's also not new. You know, like it's been going, and but you know, I think that COVID made a lot of presenters realize that they have to open up to that sphere. So that is a very positive step. That is going to fast track a lot of projects moving forward across the board, with collaborations. So that is a very positive note that I'm seeing, and look at us that we are doing this now. And you know, if without COVID, that might take a bit of more imaginations, right? So
Yes, thank you. And I'm so grateful that we're doing this now. I'm I can't express how much joy I experienced from each of your works. I mean, you all are so brilliant. And as an artist, I'm just deeply inspired by the work that you do and the holistic approaches that you have for thinking about your work, that they're so interconnected with community and just being in conversation with what's important globally. It's really, really powerful to see. So thank you for joining us this evening. Sancha, Duyan, Suzi Analogue. I am in awe. I'm a fangirl. And I just really cannot thank you enough. Wherever you are, please, I hope you're doing this. I hope you're clapping for our
thank you to the
fabulous
Brown University. Yay! Thank you for this amazing
Yes,
music.
thank you.
Thank you all. And thanks for joining us and the Brown Arts Initiative for allowing us to organize this wonderful conversation. Stay tuned for future events. Applause.
Applause. Snaps all around.
Snaps and claps. And please have a wonderful evening.
Yes.
Much.
Bye.
Peace, y'all.